So for the next item, I have an update related to special education priorities, and I know we got to hear at a last meeting some updates related to the special education grant proposal that went forward, and now, as promised, we'll bring you, Dr. Smith and Mrs. Young are going to come forward to bring you an update on special education programming. Dr. Smith.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board, and Dr. Cashwell. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this afternoon and present you a special education update. As we have worked over the last year to identify our priorities within the Exceptional Education Department, we are pleased to report that all of our action items for our priorities tie directly back to each of the 6 strategic goals. In the next few slides, you will hear information regarding literacy, social emotional behavioral supports, recruitment and retention efforts, community partnerships, as well as securing a new building and expanding programming for Virginia Randolph Education Center.
This school year has been an exciting time in our department. As Katie and I have planned our goals for the 2021-22 school year, we focused on the following 4 key areas: professional learning, specialized reading instruction, behavior learning intervention and support services, our BLISS program, and Virginia Randolph Education Center. During the pandemic, the Department of Exceptional Education did not lose sight of the importance of providing teachers, administrators, and instructional assistants with opportunities for professional growth and learning. Beginning July 1st, our department launched our Standard Operating Procedure Dashboard, which is a one-stop shop for teachers and administrators in Henrico to have clear processes and procedures for ensuring compliance with special education regulations and laws. There are over 15 topics of interest and more than 40 guidance documents in our SOP site. We've been pleased to continue monthly meetings with exceptional education administrators to provide information and training on special education compliance and best practices. Additionally, our department has expanded our library of asynchronous resources and Schoology to provide on-demand learning opportunities for staff. Finally, we've partnered with the Department of Student Support and Wellness to make professional learning available on trauma-informed practices when working with students with disabilities who may have experienced trauma.
In November, our department welcomed Dr. Marilyn Friend for a virtual professional learning session with teachers and administrators. Dr. Friend is a nationally recognized expert in the field of co-teaching. Co-teaching is a collaborative approach to instruction in which 2 teachers, typically a general education and a special education teacher, work together to plan and implement instruction for a class that includes general ed and special education students. More than 80% of our current students with disabilities in Henrico are taught using this instructional model. Additionally, our department has been in lockstep with the Departments of Teaching, Learning, and Innovation and School Quality with providing a special education lens and supports for the Henrico County instructional model. Every Monday, members of our team spend the day developing resources and supports to ensure curriculum alignment and that materials are accessible for all learners. Onboarding new teachers with information and resources is key in our retention efforts and provides teachers with opportunities to learn about instructional and compliance best practices. For the last 2 years, the special education new teacher track has been virtual. This year, we're excited to return to an in-person professional learning model for New Teacher Week, and we are looking forward to welcoming new special educators to Henrico. Our department is also working with the Department of Professional Learning and Leadership to develop micro-credentials for HCPS educators, board-certified behavior analysts, as well as developing a multisensory reading micro-credential are on our list of priorities. Our department is grateful to the work of the Professional Learning and Leadership team, in addition to the school board, for investing in the specialization of teachers in Henrico County.
Our second priority is continuing high-quality specialized reading instruction for students with disabilities. The Henrico Orton-Gillingham Strategies reading training is 21 hours of training over the course of 3 days and is led by our dyslexia advisor, Rebecca Hodel. Topics include Orton-Gillingham principles, phonological awareness and phonics, teaching high-frequency words, lesson planning, and assessment. 2 of the exceptional education school quality coaches and 6 of the exceptional education coordinators have also been trained in multisensory reading methodology. These staff are available to support teacher implementation through coaching, observation, and feedback. As a result of the rigorous professional development program led by our dyslexia advisor, each of our schools, including HBA, has at least one special education teacher trained in Orton-Gillingham-based reading strategies. Every summer, our dyslexia advisor has tracked the movement of teachers between schools, as well as any teachers leaving Henrico, to ensure that every school is able to send someone to our 3-day training in order to maintain that high-quality reading instruction for our students. Our dyslexia advisor has also collaborated with the Department of Student Support and Wellness to provide professional development to school psychologists on instructional strategies that might inform their evaluation methods.
We are excited to open the middle school zone reading program at Hungry Creek this fall. We're pleased to announce that a teacher has been selected to lead this work. The role of the teacher will be to provide individualized and small group reading instruction while pushing into the general education courses to support students and general education teachers with implementing research-based methodologies for students with significant literacy deficits. Additionally, our dyslexia advisor has worked with special education specialists to review student data, identify potential students who may require this program, and we've begun holding IEP meetings and speaking with families. It's our goal the program will support 15 sixth grade students beginning in August. One of the benefits of our time in a predominantly virtual setting was providing targeted small group reading instruction. During our summer extended school year services for the past 2 years, virtual reading teachers have been able to work with students in small groups across a variety of schools and grade level who are working on similar reading skills. We are very grateful to the school board for the 2 new virtual reading teacher positions for the 22-23 school year. We're in the process of hiring 1 elementary and 1 secondary virtual reading teacher to continue the work from the summer into a full year model. New for the upcoming school year, we're in the process of identifying 3 teachers to participate in comprehensive Orton-Gillingham certification through the Institute of the Multisensory Reading Instruction. After completing 30 hours of coursework on phonological awareness, phonics, and the instructional methods to teach fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension, teachers would then complete a practicum. During the practicum, teachers would be required to develop lesson plans and be observed by a coach while implementing instructional methods. Coaches will provide feedback about the effective implementation of direct, explicit, multisensory reading instruction principles in the lesson. Teachers who demonstrate the ability to effectively implement Orton-Gillingham strategies and whose students make significant growth during the school year will be able to attain the certification. Lastly, we've invited Rebecca Hodell, our dyslexia advisor, to join us today in the audience. Rebecca, if you would stand and be recognized for the amazing work and dedication to literacy instruction for our students with disabilities. Back on, okay.
Our third priority is enhancing our social emotional supports through our BLISS programs. The Exceptional Education Department is proud of the success of our BLISS programs and the work of the school staff that have provided a positive impact for students and families. The Metropolitan Educational Research Consortium program evaluation completed in June 2021, which was outlined in the strategic plan, indicated that HCPS exceptional education staff is meeting programmatic goals established at the onset of the BLISS program. Initial goals were to reduce disciplinary incidents, increase the amount of time that students spend in school and in their classrooms, serve students in their least restrictive setting, and then improve parent and student perceptions of school. The MERC evaluation identified recommendations that our department has addressed this year. Those recommendations include establishing defined processes for reporting data and creating additional professional learning opportunities for the critical response teachers. Next year, staff will expand the program to include additional program evaluation recommendations, which include adding a BLISS program coordinator and a BLISS specialist, which will be grant funded. Staff will also expand the program by adding a second BLISS classroom at Varina High School. This new addition brings our total to 18 BLISS classrooms in 16 of our schools. Currently, our secondary zone specialists are also reviewing options to expand our curriculum offerings at the secondary level. We are looking to adopt another curriculum option to support the ever-changing needs of our students and modify the program to support needs we've seen increase as a result of the pandemic.
The department remains committed to revision and revitalizing the programming that's provided through our public separate program of VREC. Current considerations are in place regarding the facility, staffing, and expanded programming with a goal to have these components roll out with the new building. Some new programming considerations include expanding VREC to become a pre-K through 12 school supporting students with emotional disabilities as well as autism. We plan to continue our Employment Skills Academy for students with disabilities who are 18 years and older. These students are completing vocational coursework within a special education small classroom environment and participating in ACE Center classes on the campus of Virginia Randolph.
Dr. Smith, if I might have you pause for just a
Sure.
second, and thank you for continuing on with the presentation. I know that the PowerPoint presentation is not showing for at least those in the audience, maybe on the live stream. I know that board members do have the full PowerPoint presentation as it was made available in board docs, so I appreciate you continuing, but we'll just pause for a moment and see if we can change things for those here in our audience. And
Awesome.
all right, great, and then we'll move on from there. So.
All right. Would you like for me to start over?
I think you can pick up right where you left off at
Okay.
the piece of, yep.
For the ACE Center.
Yep.
Staff members have also toured local private day schools to better understand the programmatic offerings of our private day partners to enhance our offerings with the expansion of the campus of Virginia Randolph. The exceptional education team is working with the Department of Community and Family Engagement to develop a list of potential community partnerships that will support family resources for VREC students. Some of these partnerships could include community BCBA partnerships, Henrico Mental Health, VCU TTAC, among others. I have been able to participate in the request for proposal process, including interviewing and selecting an architectural firm. Additionally, a couple weeks ago, I attended a meeting with Mosley Architects and other school leaders to discuss space utilization and program needs to assist in the design space. Thank you for your time and attention this afternoon, and at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have regarding this presentation and our identified priorities.
Thank you so much, Dr. Smith and Mrs. Young. Since we ended with VREC, I'm going to carry that enthusiasm right over and start with Reverend Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, Dr. Smith and Ms. Young, can't say thank you enough for all of the hard work that you all do on behalf of our students. So thank you so much. On slides 4 and 5, professional learning, under the career ladder micro-credentialing, could you share a bit more about the opportunities that we provide for our staff looking to improve their skill sets and boost their careers in the field of special ed?
Absolutely. So regarding the career ladder right now, the two specializations that we're currently developing are BCBA licenses or certifications for teachers, as well as looking at working with Rebecca and doing a micro-credentialing reading specialization. So those are the two current course tracks that we're in the process of developing and collaborating in order to make those specializations available for our teachers. And there will be more to come, but those are the two focus right now, one for behavior and one for reading.
I think it's important that lets them know that we are definitely intentional about allowing them to make progress. Secondly, for our full-time instructional assistants, could you share what pathways and sports we provide for helping them to move from being an IA to a certified special ed teacher?
So I'll really give a tremendous amount of kudos and appreciation to our Department of Human Resources. They've really done an outstanding job this year of really targeting our instructional assistants to make them aware of the various pathways to becoming a special education teacher. So one of the first things is specifically targeting RAs to let them know if they have a bachelor's degree and they take the prerequisite course, which involves legal, compliance for special ed, as well as the characteristics of students with disabilities, then they may be able to become provisionally licensed special education teachers. So that's kind of the first thing, is letting them know that there are routes in order to get a provisional license. Henrico has also worked with, or in the process of trying to identify 2 local universities to provide low-cost, no-cost options for RIAs to continue completing the coursework once they've obtained provisional licensure, and we're hoping that that will start this fall. And lastly, for our instructional assistants, we have also absorbed the cost of the Para-Pro examination that IAs have to take in order to be a full-time IA, so that that isn't a financial burden for them, and another reason that they would want to work in Henrico County.
I mean, that's awesome. Do we know percentage of our IAs who have taken advantage of all those opportunities in order for them to become a certified special education teacher?
I do not know. I'm happy to get back to you about that, but I will tell you I even have a secretary in my office right now who's a former instructional assistant who came to work with us on our private day team in central office, who's interviewing now to be a special ed teacher because she loves it. So, you know, come one, come all to Henrico County.
Yeah. That was a great plug. I loved it. I know Ms. Bowden loved it too. I see her smiling. Could you share more real quick about the special education tract that's provided during New Teacher Week?
Sure. So we're really excited about this, and this came about 2 years ago. And of course, you know, it was going to be implemented right when we were kind of in that COVID world. But what we do is rather than having special education teachers attend the general education sessions, we really have created their own individualized track where for 5 days they're learning from members of our team about the different fields of special education and the specialization. So like I told you, to get a provisional license, they're really just taking 1 course, maybe 2. So there's a lot that they're coming to us needing to know. So they're taking classes on the legalities, the timelines, the compliance. We're going through behavior strategies, talking about progress reports, you know, teaching them about how to call home, write IEPs, going into instruction, especially design instruction, what that looks like, whether they're in a collab class or a resource class or integrated services. They get FaceTime with their zone specialists and coordinators and other teachers in their zone to start developing that new teacher cohort so that they know who their immediate supports are in central office to help them. I could go on and on, but really it's 5 days of intensive professional development so that they feel like they're ready to start on that first day of school.
I mean, just based upon what you stated, I know that's not all of it. That's just probably a snippet of it.
That's probably 2.5 days worth.
It's important because I think in the general event, they would not get that, you know, and so that's why it's important for me to hear it. So thank you so much. Let's move to slides 6 and 7.
Okay.
If you don't mind. Can you just quickly describe the type of students who would benefit from the Orton-Gillingham approach? I was reading that this type of approach is highly effective for teaching students with dyslexia, but could you also share what other type of needs this specialized reading approach would help address?
Absolutely. So we don't specifically identify students for dyslexia in Henrico. Students can get reading services under a multitude of disability labels. So typically if a student has more of a traditional dyslexia profile, they're going to be a student who may be identified with a specific learning disability in reading. But one of the things we've really worked on with Rebecca's support and help is making an appropriate instructional match for our students. So we have more than just OG programs, but what we've really spent time this year doing is tracking progress by disability type. So students who have that traditional SLD profile, students who have maybe attention deficit disorder, OHI, students who have autism. And what we're trying to do is to make sure that the profile that the student has or the needs that they have, we have the appropriate instructional match for the student. Or if we're seeing a student's not making progress, we're able to, with the data that we're collecting and seeing where the disability groups are, we're able to make a switch to a different program that may better suit their needs to ensure that progress is being made.
Well, that's kind of a great segue to my next question, because on slide 6, it states that the OG trained teacher in each school. And so breaking down the data, since this approach is highly effective for teaching students with dyslexia, does the district have a breakdown of the number of students at each school who have been identified as having dyslexia?
So we wouldn't necessarily have that information because again, it's not a identified disability under IDEA, but we would certainly have the number of students by district, by school, who are receiving direct reading services.
Well, I guess it's good to know that we do not specifically identify. So thanks for that. And then last question on that is, what are the training requirements to become an OG classroom educator, and any type of continued ed requirements our teachers must complete in order to maintain the status?
So for the certification, it's the 30 hours of intensive plus the practicum and a final exam with lesson plan, review from an OG certified trainer already with explicit feedback on how well your instructional methods are meeting the direct needs of your students. So, and that's where we're looking to do the three teachers in Henrico, because it pretty much will take an entire year for them to reach that certification. And for the training that's led by Ms. Hodell, that's a 3 full-day training that teachers are attending for 21 hours in order to be certified, or HCPS certified, we'll call it, in Henrico to teach direct reading instruction.
Thank you so much. Thank you again for those questions being answered. Madam Chair, I'm done.
I'm surprised you didn't give some enthusiasm about VREC.
Oh, yeah, that's understatement. I was just so caught up in just focusing on the specialized reading training and what it does. But thank you for attending and talk about spatialization. I know every one of my peers, we are so excited about the opportunity to build a world-class facility that's commensurate to the needs of our students, staff, and families. And so the fact that it is in the Fairfield District, the fact that it is named after a trailblazing woman who means so much still to our community, I feel that this new facility will emphasize our commitment to ensuring that no matter where a child is, no matter what a child needs, that we're willing and able to meet those needs. So I'm excited, and I can't wait to see Ms. Moore and her team, the schematic designs. I think that day I'll wear a Virginia Randolph t-shirt or something, when we do it. So thank you again, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Reverend Cooper. Ms. Ogburn?
You asked so many of my questions, but and I thank you for that. I am so excited about this zone reading program. So if you could tell me, we're doing this at Hungry Creek. So what's next after this trial at Hungry Creek?
So the goal would be that we would, for the next 3 years, have a new 6th grade class every year. So this being the first year, we'll have the 15 6th graders who will become 7th graders next year if they still require the program. And we would bring in a new cohort of 6th grade students until we're able to grow the program. We'll continue to monitor the needs. If we have more need than the program can assist with, then we'll certainly look with and work with space utilization to identify a second site. But we're really hopeful that with doing some intense needs, that students are going to be ready to return back to their comprehensive schools with all of the tools they need to be successful for the 9th grade.
It's just awesome. I mean, all of what you said is just yet another example of supporting teachers and students. And that's what's so exciting about all of this. The only other thing I had was, you said the new programs at VREC, you're hoping to get pre-K through 12 in there. So pre-K at VREC, that would be very new. One class or
So we're going to see what the
multiple,
need is. So what we find right now is we have a lot of parents who are a little bit apprehensive, specifically when they have preschoolers who have autism, of coming to us for preschool programming. And we really see them immediately seek some of those specialized private day schools like Faison. And so what we want to do is to be able to have a program that is more intensive to support students with autism who may have behavioral challenges, so that we're able to get them into our public separate school right away to provide those necessary supports, and parents don't feel like that the current program offerings may not meet their child where they are in that preschool program.
It's just awesome. But thank you. I think between Reverend Cooper and I, we've covered all my questions. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Ogburn. Ms. Atkins?
So good afternoon to both of you. It's so wonderful to be in this moment because Dr. Smith, you came, I want to say sometime around July last year in our pandemic, and to be here almost a year later to share these positive outcomes, it's really wonderful. So I just wanted to start with that, and Ms. Young, I know you will be filling in shortly, so I'm very excited about the transition that you will be encountering. And so we're going to start it with a positive note in that way. Also, in the presentation, I liked the list of areas that you'll be focusing on. And very pleased around professional development. I know that's something that SEAC had recommended in their annual report, I think back in 2019. So it's wonderful to see this as a continued area of focus, not only because we have folks in the community, a part of SEAC, that say we need this, but we have teachers as well. And so I think it's a definite win-win to keep professional development on the radar, and that it's listed and memorialized as one of your goals as a continuum. The other space is around BLISS and PBIS. I know we have both of those teams in our schools. Can you please share, first of all, what they do and the similarities and or differences between the two teams?
Sure. So PBIS is kind of a tier 1 intervention that every student can access, whether general ed or special ed in a school. And its approach to teaching and targeting positive behaviors and rewarding positive behaviors in school. The BLISS program is a separate specialized special education program. So students still go to gen ed classes, except for one of our elementary schools does have a self-contained approach. But those students really, while they participate in the school-based PBIS model, those are students who may have specific behavior goals or behavior intervention plans with targeted individualized behavior supports, and those plans that we're working on through direct explicit behavior instruction in order to get to some proactive or appropriate behaviors for those students. So BLISS is just another layer of support, and so that we can maintain students in their least restrictive setting who may have more significant behavioral needs than just a tier 1 approach to PBIS.
Thank you for that. And just for clarity, I know we're using acronyms, but I'll say the full for both for anyone who is listening. So for BLISS, Behavioral Learning Intervention Support Services, which is one of the goals listed in your slide.
Yes.
And the other one is Positive Behavior Intervention and Support. Make sure I said that right.
Yes.
And so because we have both of these, I can share, I know there's been some feedback in just understanding the differences between the two, both understanding that they're providing us services, but how are they providing those services? What are their responsibilities specifically in developing the behavioral plans? And so in developing the behavioral plans, do both teams develop those or just one team?
So the behavior intervention plans, it's through an IEP team. So parents provide consent for us to conduct what's called a functional behavior assessment. I'll stop using my ABC acronyms, but a functional behavior assessment. And what we do is we really look as a team and say, what are the maybe 3 behaviors we want to specifically target for this student? Like, what are we seeing that's kind of disrupting their learning or the learning of others? And so the team will come up with kind of those 3 specific behaviors that they want to target. And then they take what's called ABC data, that's what it's called, but it's antecedent, behavior, and consequence. And so once they see the behavior, like during a classroom observation, they say what immediately happened before it. So we can start identifying the triggers so that we can anticipate if this happens to a student, this might be the behavior that we see. And then we try to figure out the function of the behavior. So is it avoidance? Is it attention seeking? And so what would be the response? So if a student really struggles with reading per se, and they're called on to read aloud, and then they exhibit a behavior, and then the teacher says to them, okay, you don't have to read anymore, then we've kind of negatively reinforced that every time you're asked to read aloud, if you exhibit an inappropriate behavior, we'll stop that demand. So what we look to do is, once we've identified that it's an avoidance behavior, how can we teach replacement skills to that student and probably provide targeted reading instruction if they're not already seeing it that will lessen the chance that we're going to see that behavior over time. And that's really what the behavior intervention plan then outlines.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. I think if there was some way to capture that, to be able to explain it to families, that might be something for you and your teams to consider, especially being aligned with that IEP process and the responses from the behavior. So the outcome of that behavior and how it's going to be handled, I think is something that would help many families better understand the process.
Absolutely.
Right? We see the outcome, but we may not always understand what that process is. And I think that the school division is doing a great job of decreasing arrests and sending our kids to juvenile justice departments. However, it still is a concern. And when I saw your focus on BLIS, and I'm just going to say /PBIS, I think that I would like to learn more on how these teams can help in that space, right? We know we have higher disciplinary numbers in our areas of disabilities, but and also students of color with disabilities. And it'll be nice to have a better understanding on that process that both of these teams use. How does that impact sort of that disciplinary high proportionate rates that we see? So of course, not in this setting, but I would like to be a part of a conversation to better understand that and then capture it so that families can be a part of that conversation as well. And then lastly, I also wanted to share a few thoughts as I was going through just some past reports and conversations with families. I wanted to just share some of the feedback that I've received as far as the question was, if I could say something on your behalf, what would it be? That was a very long list, so I just captured the top. And so families would like more information on navigating roadblocks within unique situations, as well as the overall special education process, transition planning, dyslexia, and resources to keep their children engaged, particularly when we're thinking about our virtual learners within the special education space. How do families continue to keep their kids engaged through the screen? It's already something of a conversation piece without the disability, but particularly on this topic, students with disabilities, how can we help our families keep those kids engaged and wanting to learn and wanting to read? And so I wanted to share that feedback with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Atkins. Ms. Kinsella? Ms. Kinsella, I believe you might be muted. Hold on, we had a computer reboot on our end, so let's make sure we're all hooked up and the joys of virtual learning, virtual meetings. All right, try again. All right, hold on. Ms. Atkins, Ms. Kinsella, if you don't mind, I know it's traditional for the chair to go last, but I'll go ahead and go with my questions while we figure out our team's connection. All right, can you speak again, Ms. Kinsella? Nope. Hold on.
Going through the computer. I think she has some sort of...
Right now. Yeah.
Try again, Ms. Kinsella.
Okay, testing.
Yeah, there you are. All right, go ahead.
Okay, well, I appreciate this update, of course. Thank you, Dr. Smith and Ms. Young. As I listen, I try to hear things where we've spent money from our budget, either prior budget or upcoming budget. And I just heard 2 reading teachers. I'm excited about that. I'm seeing career ladder, right? The 3 million toward the career ladder.
That's correct.
And then if someone could explain to me where our 40, I know our budget has 40 special education instructional assistants going from temporary to full-time. Can you explain that to me, how that is going to positively impact our special education in Henrico schools?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest things we've noticed this year, and we've really charted since September, is looking at our temporary instructional assistant vacancies and recognizing that our schools have had a difficulty attracting and retaining some of those positions, particularly our secondary schools. And so what our team has done is we've taken those 40 positions, and as I stand here, we've allocated 32, where we've been able to make reductions in schools that have had unfilled temporary assignments for the entire year and provide them with a full-time staff member for next year. And so we've just very recently, as of yesterday, gotten the numbers to post and start hiring all of those positions. But those positions directly work with students, either in our integrated services programs, or some of them serve in a targeted assistance, directly working with students in the gen ed setting. And so that number is going to make a tremendous impact to our schools in order to also make sure that our teachers feel empowered and successful in the classroom by having those instructional assistants from bell to bell in order to support the various student needs that we see.
Thank you. Thank you for highlighting that. I think that's the one thing that I've heard this year when I hear feedback from our teachers, is that support was crucial, both for our teachers and for our students. So thank you for that information. That's all I had, Chair Shea.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kinsella. So a few questions from me. The one-stop shop that you talked about, is that available to general education staff or just special education staff?
It is available to all staff, general education teachers, special education teachers, related service providers, and administrators.
I think that's so wonderful. As a general education teacher, I know sometimes I had specific questions, and while I would, seek out the caseworker and try to talk about things, having a one-stop shop to be able to, kind of self-access and self-educate to come to the caseworker more educated. I think that's a game changer, particularly for a lot of our secondary general education teachers who see different types of IEPs from year to year. And so I applaud y'all for making it easy to access everything in one place. I think the easier it can be, the more likely it is to be utilized like we want it to.
Thank you.
Let's see. So I'm really excited about all of our reading initiatives, both for our general education students and our special education students. I know that's been a really big focus of Dr. Cashwell since she came here, infusing the science of reading in our new literacy plan, and then as well as this OG piece, which I think is so important. And I'll just, again, shout out Ms. Odell. I remember maybe 2 years ago at one of the budget hearings, the sole comment was on the impact of Ms. Odell's position and her department as it was really ramping up, and the positive impact on our students. And so I'm glad to see that those services are expanding and continuing. It's from what I've read, it's estimated about 15 to 20% of students nationwide have dyslexia, and so statistically that impacts all of our classrooms. So a couple questions specifically around dyslexia. First, can you articulate again? You spoke with Reverend Cooper a little bit about it. You mentioned that we do not identify dyslexia specifically, but we do identify, was it reading disabilities?
So yes, so one of the IDEA categories is not dyslexia, its own, like as a standalone category. It's actually specific learning disability in the area of reading. But we also know that there are other disabilities who struggle with reading outside of just students who are identified or who may have the medical diagnosis of dyslexia.
So can you explain to us the reason why we don't identify dyslexia? Is it because it's not an ID, or it's not a?
Yes, ma'am. So when we identify a student to be eligible for special education services, we use the IDEA criteria and the IDEA disability categories in order to do that.
That's really helpful for me. I didn't realize that was kind of I didn't realize all of those pieces. And so as parents reach out and say, you know, my child has dyslexia, but the school isn't recognizing it as dyslexia, that helps me understand the bigger picture and how we are identifying things and are categorizing things.
And the same would be true for like dyscalculia. So that would be a student who has a math disability, or dysgraphia, a student who has a writing disability.
Thank you so much for that clarification. So I know maybe 2 years ago, we were planning to implement the RAND screener, and then we all got COVIDed with all the last 2 years. So where are we in that with the RAND screener?
We are not, I might have Rebecca come up, but we're not using the grand screener at the moment, but she can probably give you a little bit more information than I can.
Hello. So since we came back from COVID, have not reinstituted providing the RAND screener that we were using in kindergarten pre-COVID. We were using it actually kindergarten and first grade at some of our schools. PALS, which is produced by the University of Virginia, is updating and is possibly going to include a RAND screener. So then that would be provided for us free of charge. And then additionally, we are looking at progress monitoring tools for students who are already in special education, which do include a RAND screener.
Thank you so much. I know on one hand, it's a hesitation to add yet another screener to our kindergarten teachers, because I know they feel like the whole first month is just, you know, PALS and F&P and math screeners, and they want time to build community with their students. But I also know it's so crucial to identify students who need extra reading supports as soon as possible, right before they're behind, so that we can offer them the kind of reading instruction that they need to not only keep pace, but excel like any of our other students. And so I am excited to hear that perhaps a PALS update, something we're already doing, could have that piece there, and that we are actively monitoring and identifying students as early as possible for what kind of reading supports they might need. So that's what I'm hearing. So
yes, one thing I just want to add though
Yeah.
is, you know, we have to also think about where students should be developmentally in reading, and COVID's had a tremendous impact on that. And so we wouldn't necessarily, even on a PALS screener, immediately say, hey, you might need a child find. We're really going to start with intervention first to see if we can do some targeted short-term interventions for our students before we really get to the point where we do think it is disability related, as opposed to something that an intervention could fix on a short-term period. So I think that's why we're also interested in the PALS RAND test, because it's going to apply to all students. And so that's just something I'll toss out there, that at the first sign a student might be struggling with reading, even as early as kindergarten with letter sound patterns and things like that, we wouldn't want to necessarily immediately suspect a disability without trying to do some targeted interventions first.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, and but bringing forward the fact that students as early as possible are getting interventions.
Absolutely.
Really important. So thank you for that. The 15 students in the Hungry Creek program, are they students who are geographically around Hungry Creek, or are they pulled from all over?
So when we looked at reading data from across the division, and so what we did is we identified a group of students. We don't have 15 yet. I think, Rebecca, we have 6 commitments right now.
I think we have 6 confirmed.
But we're in the process of holding IEP meetings. So they're coming from all over the division for students who need that specialized reading and programming. And so IEP teams are meeting, parents are considering the change of placement for their students, and then we're working with transportation to make sure they've got transportation all set up.
Thank you so much. And then in respect to VREC, I just want to repeat something that Reverend Cooper said and you said. I think, first of all, to say that we're going to see what the need is. When Ms. Ogburn asked about pre-K, I think that's so indicative of what we're doing across the division, but at VREC particularly, we're looking at what the need is. We're not driving, here's what we want. let the people who fit come. We're looking at the need, and I think that's so important and so responsive. And then for Reverend Cooper to say, you know, it's a world-class facility. It's a world-class facility housed in the Fairfield District, but serving all of our students in Henrico. It's a really exciting time. So that is all for me. Thank you for all your clarifications. I think there's a lot of things today and in your talking points on how you spoke to it with a lot of clarity, which was really helpful. Not only did I learn a lot to get things, you know, like the PBIS and BLIS pieces about being a tier 1 versus, you know, an additional tier. I think that somehow just clicked for me and provided a lot of clarity. So I appreciate all three of you for your work today.
Thank you.
Thanks again to our presenters and to our board members for such excellent questions. All right.